All right. So I think we are going to be streaming this class for how to ideate. One of the biggest challenges that I see as far as we are looking at as designers, the common feedback that I get from everyone is how should we ideate and what should we be, how fast can we do it? Because most people struggle with thinking about ideas. And my philosophy is ideation is not hard. It's just a mechanism. It's just a practice. You have to practice your mind to do it, or teach your brain to do it. And then after that, it becomes very, very easy. So this is a very simple technique that I'm going to teach all of you guys. And this is something that should be basic for any designer. And this is like a Prasad special flavor that we call heuristic-based ideation. Okay. So for those of you that are just signing up, just look up heuristics, what the 10 heuristics are, and then we will start ideating around that. All right. So now, here are the 10 heuristics that we are all looking at. Okay, visibility of system status, match between system and the real world, user control and freedom, consistency and standards, error prevention, help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors, flexibility and efficiency of use, recognition rather than recall, aesthetic and minimalistic design, and help and documentation. So for everybody that is watching this, as far as within the Zoom call, what we discussed earlier is, I'm going to call out one heuristic and we will all discuss it, and I want you to sketch it, and then we will share and we will talk about it. Okay. And I have with me Saurabh, who's sitting with me, where he's going to be doing the whiteboarding session as I speak. All right. So let's go on to the next, the first heuristic. Okay. The first heuristic that we have, and let's actually look at the scenario first. Okay. The scenario that we are looking at is a simple sign up experience. Okay. And we are looking at it from the perspective of a company like similar to Medium, and this company's goal is that we want to create a sign up experience. And they've basically reached out to you and said, can you create a sign up experience for us? Okay. That's a simple design brief that has been given to you. Okay. The traditional sign up that they've said is, based on your discussions with the client, they basically said, yeah, it's very simple. They come on the homepage. On the homepage, they see a button that says join. And then when they click on the join, they go to a sign up page where they have to register, and they're going to be asked 7 pieces of information: email, first name, last name, phone number, location, industry, and role. And then the topics, once that is done, they go directly to the topics and they start learning. So this is what the company or your client has kind of described. Okay. Now let's actually start looking at each one of the heuristics one by one and start thinking about how we're going to present it. Okay. So, and again, guys, feel free to jump in, because one of the things that I would say is, like, if you have a point, just raise your hand and then share what you think. But let's look at the first one, which is visibility of system status. Okay. Now, what is visibility of system status? Okay. We traditionally kind of think about it from a very narrow perspective, which is, what is happening in the system at this time. At least that's how it's described. But really, when you look at the systems that are being designed today, there are multiple different states. Okay. So for example, if you are a brand new user, the system status is it's a brand new user, right? Or if you've logged in and then you've come back again, it might be like, yeah, I have a high confidence that it is you, but I still want you to log in. So that's also system status. It's like, yeah, you're kind of semi-logged in kind of an experience. And then you might also have system statuses in terms of, well, what were you reading? What articles were you reading? Where were you? Or, more on a more traditional sense, the system status is, hey, if this is a 3-step process, on which of the steps are you on? Okay. So when you think about all the different ways that you can define status in, now, clearly there are some really interesting ways that you can design for the visibility of system status. So let's take a minute for everyone, and why don't you start sketching the same workflow that you see up here. Now design it for visibility of system status. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to give you about 10-15 seconds, and then I'll And if you think you have a good idea, just raise your hand and we'll call you first. And then after that, we'll do the whiteboarding for us. Then if you can keep your cameras on, I can see, okay, somebody is done. I know because you'll be looking left and right. So I know if you're done. All right. Anybody have any interesting ideas here? Raise your hand so we can see. All right, go for it, Ishita. Share your screen and or maybe you can just talk about it. That's fine, because I think it's harder to share your screen. Yeah.
Yeah, so I draw it on the paper, so I'll just
that's fine. Yeah, just describe it.
So couple of things I have cater on the point of visibility of the system status. Once we clicked on the register, there are a couple of fields you need to enter. So if we can get it, if it is a long lengthy, then we can use the steppers. That is one. And also I thought of the error states. So suppose your email ID it's not find, means it's not in the correct format. So immediately we can just mention it what is wrong, like at the rate was missing or very prominent thing. So it won't get say people will not get into the clicking mode. Immediately you'll get to know, okay, this is something wrong, I need to fix it out. So that is two things I'll just thought of immediately. So I'm still thinking.
I like that idea. So the first one is what did you say? It was steps, right? So you have 3 steps, and then you're just basically step 1 of 1, step 2 of 2, step 3 of 3, right? 1 of 3,
yeah.
2 of 3, 3 of 3.
Exactly.
And the second way is you're basically showing system status where, and I would not say telling that you were wrong is not visibility of system status. Okay. While you're typing. So for example, when you're typing in your password, and you see the suggestions come down below, or you see the check mark, okay, 5 alphabets done, 2 keywords not done, right? So, or 2 special characters not done. So that's kind of indicating a status element in there.
True.
Yeah. So I will take a different flavor of that. And we would say that, if you were continuously giving feedback about how much or how far you're expected to go and what you have achieved so far, that's a system status. Good. Excellent. Is there anybody else that wants to share their idea? Anyone else? So, where I think... where is Varun? I think he raised his hand and then he put it down.
Hello.
Yeah.
I don't know if it is right. That's the reason why I put it down. So
that's fine. Whether you're right or wrong doesn't matter, right? It's ideation. You can be wrong.
As in, it's a, in the home page, right? So when you go to the home page, instead of just join now, you can have a field, like a drop down or a field where you can select the role, role directly there. And then so that in the next step, you'll see, topics, interesting topics. Then when you click on it, you can probably give the sign up, related.
So what does the drop down do?
I mean, roles. It will tell you the roles. Select the roles that you have. Select the
But
role
again,
that.
this is a sign-up experience. This is a sign-up experience.
Right, right,
So regardless of the roles, you have to sign up first.
right, right, right.
You know? So yeah, so I think you probably went a step further than required. We're just thinking at a very basic level. It's a very simple experience that we all take for granted, but really there are many ways of looking at it. So I would say, yeah. So this is you probably need to step back and think about a basic sign up.
Got it. That's the reason I put it down.
Cool, no worries. So Ishita.
Yeah, one thing I also remember, like some of the field it's important to fill, which is non-negotiable, like a email ID and password. So mandate field. So we need to convey the same thing to the users. These are the things.
So you're saying that is also system status, but that's at a UI level, right? So
Okay.
let's just think at a flow level. And of course, the same philosophy will apply at a UI level. And I would be, right after this, we lost power in the office. Wow. Okay. So, so can you just power up? Let's see if there are other class. Okay. All right. So when you are thinking about system status, the one simple way that I would say is what are all the status elements that we've talked about? Okay. Status elements are, okay, do I know that you are a user? What did you read an article before? So visibility of system status might say, hey, welcome, welcome, Ishita, I see you, but, do you want to, if it's you, just can you click here and then continue onwards? Right? So that is one workflow that you can possibly do. The other workflow that you're probably doing is you're probably also adding that, hey, this is step 1 of 3. It's an easy 3-step process. And at every step, you're saying 1 of 3, 2 of 3, 3 of 3. Right? And so when you do that, you have a system status. And again, you may have many different flavors of visibility of system status. My thing is, I'm just putting it out there, right? So, I mean, no, there's no perfect or wrong answer for this. Each idea that you have is valid because they will build up on your previous ideas. All right. So in this case, you have the homepage. It says join or continue. And then if you say join, let's go to the next screen. And then you are saying, hey, step, one step to get it all done or whatever, right? So sing one step and then you put in all your information in here. Okay. Or possibly if you have 7 steps and you want to group your information, you might say, okay, enter some of the information and then step 1 of 2 and step 2 of 2. You're done. Okay. And then when you come to the next one, again, visibility system status, okay, you signed up. That's great. So it's like, congratulations, welcome to the party. So you give a big messaging and then you have basically indicated that you are now inside the wall and you're ready to start using the process, the product. So it's like you have to give a congratulations or something like that. So it's like awesome. Right? So that is visibility system status. That's one flavor. Again, there are many ways to do this. What you've done is probably also right, but I'm just challenging. I'm putting one idea forward. All right. Now let's look at the next heuristic. Okay. The next heuristic is match between system and the real world. Okay. Now, what does match between system and the real world mean, and why is that heuristic important? So if you're looking at match between system and the real world, the intention there is the system that you're using should seem so familiar that you are just able to use it intuitively, right? So match between system and the real world impacts understandability of your product. Okay. And it also impacts usability of your product. If you can understand it, you can use it. Okay. So that is the core goal. Okay. So the challenge that you have for yourself is, how do you help people understand the whole login process? Okay. Now let's show them the ideal version or the version that was given to you by your client. Now think about it, like, how do I make it understandable and naturalistic compared to what they've done before? How do I make it so easy for them? And the real world could be something like, an application that you've used before, that you're familiar with, or it could also be something that you do offline. Go ahead, Varun.
One is, allowing them to read a couple of topics and then giving the sign up process there.
And what system does that match?
It is very natural, right, offline as well, to use something and then.
So tell me, what is the offline system that it is similar to?
Anything that you get, as a physical product, you just want to try it out, right? So I would think it as, any product in terms of offline.
Okay. So if you were to go to a store, you look at a product, you'll probably tinker with it, and then you say, okay, I want to buy it.
Yeah, just experience it and then buy it.
Okay, so that's a real world. Awesome, good idea. Simran?
Hey, Prasad. Yeah, so building on what Varun said, I had something similar. You have like a sneak peek sort of a thing, similar to since you said medium, right? So I would take a book, flip through the pages, say that, hey, you know what, this is interesting. So take that experience and give like a sneak peek. And then after that, to also make the sign-up process a little faster, since they're familiar with social logins, use the social login that would cover, their email address, everything in one click itself, without having them go through the laborious process of email, first name, phone number, etc.
Okay, so this is interesting. So you've not only said, in a physical world, you want to, but what Varun has said is you let them play around with it. But here you are saying, no, give them a sneak peek. Now, don't let them see everything. Let them see the sneak peek. And if you want to unlock the value of this article or whatever, sign up, right? That's one thing. The second thing that you have said is the real world is also the other apps that you use. You use your Gmail, you use, LinkedIn and all that stuff. So let's bring those logins in and then help you just log in using something that you're familiar with.
Yeah.
Awesome. I love those ideas. Good. So I'm going to take one more idea and then we will move on. Okay. So go ahead, Ishita.
Very similar to Simran, and that was like we can leverage the biometrics. So you usually saved in your phone. So just have it, all the saved information, just keep it handy. This will help you to sign up.
So I will take a slight different flavor of it. I'll just build on your idea. Okay. So because the question is, where do you use biometrics? It's not a fairly common thing, right? I mean, but however, you do use biometrics. For example, when you go to a store, your neighborhood store, they'll say, hey, Ishita, welcome back. Or you go to your local, the food cart, they know you and say, oh yeah, I made your favorite dish for you. Right. So I think there is this element of recognition from there. Right. So now how do you take that match between system and the real world? How do you help the system recognize when you're coming for the first time? Right. So possibly where you're looking at is, you can say, for example, if you're coming from a Google, right? So you're searched for something and you're coming from Google, you can actually tell what the referring URL was. Okay, so you can tell somebody came from Google or somebody came from WhatsApp or somebody came from some certain location, and possibly you can create a customized experience for that individual. Right? So that's a really good idea as well. So I would basically say, these are all awesome ideas, right? So now this is where I would say match between system and the real world. I would go with the basic one, which is, get to read a little bit. So I would take, the idea that Simran and Varun proposed, and I would kind of simplify it. You want to explore. Here are a few of the articles. You can see everything that's out there, and potentially you can customize it, right? Based on what Ishita said, based on where people are coming from, you can customize it to a certain extent. But even if you can't customize it, you show the most popular articles or whatever, and then you say, hey, if you want to read more, register and move on, and that's great. And this is very similar to what you would see in a library, in a public library. You go into a library, you see the books, and then you might want to sit there and read it, maybe, or you might want to check out the book. You go to the librarian and they say, yeah, you need to get a membership, get your membership and move on. Okay, so that's a really good example, a metaphor for match between system and the real world. Awesome ideas. Okay, now let's go to the third one. Third one is user control and freedom. Okay, so what does user control and freedom mean? Okay, so that means the users have the freedom, because users may think about the task very differently from the way that you have planned the task. Okay, so you want it easy for the user to do it in a way that they are familiar with or that they want to execute. Okay, so if you want to do user control and freedom, now what is the cost of not giving user control and freedom? Can anybody tell me that?
Losing the customer user.
Sorry?
Losing the user. I mean, because if
You
don't-
lose the user. Yeah, you could say that for anything, right? But there is a specific effect that happens with user control. Go ahead, Simran.
It's very frustrating because your mental model is attuned to something, and then the designers plan something, and you're not able to. You only have to follow that one track that the designer has set for you.
Correct.
It's a frustrating experience.
Absolutely, right? So it's a frustrating experience. So what happens when you're frustrated is, if you have an option, you might leave. If you do not have an option, what you'll do, you'll design workarounds. Because they'll figure out, okay, this is the only way that the tool allows me to do it, so I'm going to learn that tool. So what is the impact of that? If 100 people are using it, probably only 10 or 15 will become experts in your tool, right? And so now there is a cost for onboarding. Okay, so when you do not do user control and freedom, right, the cost that you have is learnability. Okay, how quickly do people learn your product? How much do they recommend your product to somebody else in the market? Because if it's hard to learn, you're not going to recommend it to somebody else, right? So these are the nuances of user control and freedom. Now let's just go back to this same experience. Now, yeah, go ahead, Simran.
But Prasad, on what you said, I have a doubt. So I used to use Adobe XD, and then I moved to Figma. So there was a learning curve that I had to bring about in my life to understand Figma, but it was worth the effort. There was a lot of time to value in it.
Right.
But because they did something, they made some things familiar, but then there were some new concepts that they had brought about that required Figma themselves to put out courses for them to learn. So with that perspective, and even there's another software that I just use called After Effects, which is a very, very complex software that requires a lot of time and everything. And it took me about a year to fully wrap my head around the complexities of that. So for situations like that, how would user control be implemented, or like whatever you're saying, right, about losing learnability and all that?
This is a really good question. So if you want to do that, really think about what is it that 90% of the people want to achieve on your product, right? Give freedom and control on the elements that people, that people want to do. And then there's new stuff that you have designed. And potentially what you want to do is, you want to be able to, there's always a situation where you want to, modify your product or grow it or evolve it to the next level because it's a competitive market, right? However, the point is you don't change the whole product, right? You change parts of the product while certain parts of the product continue to give the same control and freedom as before. Okay, so that way you're not impacting the learnability of a product. Okay, so for example, if there are 10 facts that you need to know and 9 of them you're already familiar with, it's just one, the amount of work that somebody has to do is very small, right? So you don't redo the whole product in that case. Right. In fact, redoing the whole product is a big risky gambit, but there are mitigation factors, there are mitigation strategies to that. But for now, most of the time, this is the most common one. You don't change everything, change the stuff that needs to be changed and keep the rest of it the same.
Got it.
Okay, cool. Varun, comment or question?
Question.
Okay, go ahead.
Sorry, I have a very fundamental question here. So in terms of what we are trying to do is trying to do workflows around it, right, for the ideation.
Yes.
So But instead, in terms of whatever we have learned until now, we locked in the workflows, we have recommended the workflows, and then ideating on the recommended one in terms of how to apply. So, like when and how do we approach these things, or should we approach anything at any point of time, or like doing multiple workflows for the same problem, or finalizing the workflows and then ideating on specific things?
No, see, I think the point being here is you're ideating. So you are doing multiple workflows for the same problem. Okay. The intention here, the reason I'm teaching you this way is you get to think about the same problem from multiple perspectives. So when you finally start doing your solution set is so big that it is automatically very comprehensive in nature.
Right.
Okay. So you can ideate at any level. You can ideate at a workflow level. You can ideate at a wireframe level. You can ideate at a UI element level as well, right?
Okay.
But when you do the heuristic level, based ideation, you can apply it anywhere. This is the same technique applies everywhere. And you do it 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 times. You won't even realize you're doing it. In your mind, literally all those 10 solutions will map out, and then you'll just draw it, and that's automatic. And people would be like, okay, how do you do it so well in the first time?
Right.
So that's what it is. So this exercise is to expand your mind first.
Oh, okay. Sounds good.
Cool. All right. So now here's the challenge for you. Okay. Same workflow. How would you redesign it for a user control and freedom perspective? All right. Raise your hand when you start having ideas. Awesome. Go for it, Simran.
There's something at the top of my head. But this is sort of contradicting with what I said earlier. A user control would be to provide a skip button or sign up later or something like that, so that they get to spend some more time. But here's where I'm having the doubt, where earlier my intention was I wanted to give them a sneak peek and they're like, okay, you're done. Now here's I need your data. But here I'm saying I don't want that. I will give you the option to skip.
Right.
So with that,
this is it's a really good idea, right?
Okay.
Because see, ideation is the process of saying, see, you're looking at only one problem at one time and you're coming up with an idea. Then you look at only one problem at the second time and you come up with an idea. Okay. By the time you're done with your 10 ideas, you'll actually start realizing, okay, what are the trade-offs I have to do? What are the effects? And the final solution that you get is going to be so much better than if you just did one and put it out there.
Okay, got it.
Okay, so it's okay to completely contradict your previous idea. That is perfectly fine. In fact, it's welcome to do that. Okay.
But if the client has given a business goal in mind, right? Like I want my users to sign up within the first, let's say 20 seconds or 30 seconds of being on the screen. When that's the challenge or the limitation that they've set, then a lot of these things get thrown off, right?
Not really. You can ask them, okay, you're the client. I can ask you like, okay, Simran, why do you want them to sign up? So what's your answer to that?
I to sort of promote, I need that data so that I can promote more events. And that's just one.
Awesome.
So I need their email address, promote events, send them newsletters. Okay.
So now let's think about it. Same idea, same solution. Do you see a possibility here?
Yeah.
Yes. Right. And so, for those of you that are watching on YouTube, I'm going to sketch it out so you can see exactly what Simran and I had just understood here. But go ahead, Varun.
Yeah, something similar to that. But when you so if you allow them to read, let's say 10 to 15 articles for free, probably ask them to remind them to sign up after 3 articles, and then have an option to skip, and then until you reach that sort of a limit, so that you provoke them to get into it. Yeah,
really good idea. So you can say, hey, you have this much quota of articles. If you want to read more, sign up. Okay. Now, that way you're kind of giving them the whole perspective of, you have control and freedom, but at the same time, I want you to kind of move forward, right? But that the trade-off there is Simran's use case, where let us say I want some data from you,
Right.
okay? I'm still not able to get any data, right? So I'm losing potential leads, okay? But the idea is solid, but the trade-off is you have some leads, but that's okay. This is a really good idea. So go ahead, Anita.
So for this user control and freedom, I thought that we can give them the access, they can read. And after a point when they want to save it or share it, then we can ask them to save it, you need to sign up. And also we can give an option that if you want blogs related to your interest, you can sign up, because as we are taking industry role and locations, based on that, we can filter out and customize. So giving that nudge as well, we can provoke them to sign up.
Awesome. Love it. So what you've done is you said, you've created opportunities for people to engage with you in the long term. And you said, yeah, if you want to engage with me on the long term, here's an opportunity, right? Where it's not coercive. I'm not coercing you where, and again, both ideas are good, right? So Varun's idea is a little bit more coercive, where you have to kind of, if you want to get beyond this, you have to sign up, right? Whereas yours is more, it's more participatory, right? Hey, if you want to sign it, if you want to save this and come back again, just give me your email address, I'll save it for you.
Yeah.
Right. So it's a very different tone and both ideas are awesome. So now when you start thinking about it, when we're looking at user control and freedom, okay, the way I would basically, my idea that I'm actually looking at is, first step, let's just say that, okay, welcome, do you want to, I like the idea that you guys gave, where you said, okay, Varun and team gave, which is like, you don't have to sign up right now, right? Just access an article. Either you read the whole article or read 5 articles or partially read 1 article. Okay. You want to read the rest? Let's just, give me your email address. The other approach that you're basically saying is, continue as guest. Now, this is the approach that I would think of here is, you're saying continue as guest. And if you're continuing as guest, you can basically say, okay, just give me your email address. And so you can just continue on. I don't want the remaining 6 data points. Okay. So that may be one possible way that you can say continue as guest. Right. So it's a combination of a number of different ideas that you can kind of play around with. So continue as guest has to have an email. They submit their email. Or without an email, you can continue, and after X number of articles, you say, okay, you're locked up. Give me your email address, and then, or, with Anita's idea, I like that idea, continue as guest. And after that, if you want to save it, take your email address and awesome, done. And so everybody on the same page with user control and freedom, right? And see, notice just by discussing and looking at one problem at a time, how the quality of our thought process is improved radically. Right. And how many of you even thought that, just something as simple as a sign up is going to have so many ideas. Right. Now let's go on to the next one. Okay. The next one is error prevention.
Prasad, I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Kevin.
I'm so sorry. Yeah. So I was thinking for this kind of scenario where you say that sign up after certain time is mandatory. Don't you think user control and freedom does not applies over here? Because you any which ways you're asking for their data, right? And if you look at how products evolve today, you look at how YouTube is designed, it never asks you to log in unless there is a private content over there.
Right.
So do you think this user control and freedom is applicable over here? Because at the end, after 5 minutes, you're going to ask them because they are using your bandwidth, right?
Right.
Resources. Then do you think this heuristic is applicable over here?
That's awesome. That's a really good question. So let's actually take up the YouTube model versus,
because one more thing, YouTube, even if you don't log in, it gives you personalized content.
Yes. How does it do that? How does it do that?
Because that is your intent based, right? You don't need to log in, right? Because I use it on I use incognito mode with YouTube, and then when I come to homepage, I see all recommendations are relevant to my previous.
But how is it possible? Think about it.
By reading, whatever the time that you spend on the page within the cache, based on the cookies that you spend on the page.
So that is fine. If I want to make dal, I write a recipe of dal, right? Then if it detects, right, it is a 15 minutes long video, and if I don't watch it for more than 2 or 3 minutes, I dislike the video. If I even though if I don't dislike, it recommends me on the homepage.
So let's actually break it down. Let's break it down. Okay. The first step is there's a completely different business model, right? So potentially, again, when you're thinking as a designer, yeah, you can have a completely different business model. I don't need people to log in to show them advertisements, right? So that's an important thing. Second, I don't need, you to kind of say, hey, in terms of your account, right? I don't need you to be logged in to know your history, because if you look at your cookies, every time you watch a video, there's a cookie that's dropped on your desktop. Okay. So over time, every time you come back to YouTube, it will just load up all the previous cookies and kind of crunch something and magically say, okay, this is where the intention is. Okay. Now, in your case, let's say there's also a case where somebody is incognito, right? You can still customize, because you're saying, okay, yeah, if you are, it's morning time or X amount of time in X amount of location, and you can see what the common or the most popular videos in that space are, you can present that. And that's another type of customization that you can do at an aggregate level. All right. Now, within the session, once you start using a product, whether it's incognito or not, doesn't matter. Once you start using the product, again, there is data that's being generated that the YouTube knows, okay, yeah, this person looked at this video, did not look at this video, whatever, and then you can kind of get going. And so again, there's also a factor of the business model. The business model allows YouTube to not have people logged in, right? Whereas if you go to certain products where you have to be logged in, okay, it's a different business model. So you basically think through a different model. So in the experience that we are looking at, we are kind of assuming that, yeah, there has to be some kind of a sign up, because that's how the long-term growth is. And we are not questioning that. But again, yes, absolutely. If you're doing a strategy level discussion, you would question that assumption as well. Okay. And if you notice the idea for user control and freedom, we are not asking them for anything, right? So in fact, you are basically saying, if you want to save this, now give us your email address. So if you look at that approach, you're still kind of pushing the business model a little bit. Now, if the person says, no, I definitely need the email address, you say, okay, yeah, I'm just going to take the email address, but then you can see everything. I don't want all 7 pieces of information. I'm only going to take 1. Okay, so there are different ways that you can look at it. Does that answer your question, Kevin?
Yes, thank you.
Cool, awesome. Simran, you have a question, comment?
I have a question regarding this. So the 4th heuristic is consistency and standards. Do we ideate on that level as well? Or can we ideate on that level as well?
Yeah, that'll come. So it's on the 10th one, right? So now I'm going to do error prevention, and then consistency and standards is the 10th one, I think. That's the last one. Okay. Cool. So let's look at error prevention. Okay. Now, if you were to do error prevention, now what is the impact? What is error prevention, right? Error prevention is you are not letting the user hit submit, right? Before, how quickly can you avoid an error? The whole premise is on avoiding an error. Okay. If an error happens, okay, what are the consequences of that? You are going to have what you would call a lot of, it's additional expense, right? So if you have an error, somebody is going to maybe call your customer service, or if you have an error, somebody is basically going to, give up the process or do something, right? So the idea here is the more you can reduce the errors, the quicker people kind of get their job done. Okay, so it is this whole process is, again, it's a satisfaction kind of it affects satisfaction if you are able to avoid the errors. All right, so now let's go back to the previous flow, and now let's look at this and say, okay, how would you reduce errors? What's your strategy? Go ahead.
By just simply changing the button state to inactive until they give the correct information.
Awesome. So you're basically gating the experience in terms of filling the information, but still there is some kind of error that's already happened. Because I have entered my email address wrongly, And so now when I scroll down, it is still gray. So it is still an error has happened, right? So the focus that you have to have is while the error is happening, you want to stop it.
Yeah.
Or before the error happens, you want to stop it.
Yeah, that is probably, at gmail.com, or if they put it wrongly, if they type it wrongly, I think you can correct them there itself in the field level.
So you're saying you want to correct on the spot. So your suggestion is give feedback on the spot.
Yeah.
Okay, good. Go ahead, Simran.
I was thinking of having pre-filled gray text, especially in situations where you have date, right? So some places have DD, MM, and YY. Some places have MM, DD, YY. So a lot of times I think that it's date, month first and date, or sometimes I think it's date first and month. And a lot of times I've given the wrong thing and then realize only after, let's say if my birthday is after 12 is when I realize that it's month and not a day. So have pre-filled content. And similar to what Varun was saying, as soon as I hit add, there should already be pre-filled text as Gmail, Outlook, all the popular sites should sort of already be pre-filled, so that I don't have to go through that effort of making a spelling mistake in my .com, in my email address.
So what you're basically saying is provide guardrails, right? And again, I don't want to discuss at UI level. I want to discuss it at experience level. Okay. So at an experience level, you're providing guardrails.
Yeah.
Right.
I just went down to explain what guardrails I was talking about.
Yeah. Perfect. I love it. I'm just now bringing the conversation up so people kind of understand, right? So guardrail might be something as, you are planning for what kinds of error to happen, right? And you're providing those kinds of feedback or whatever at that space, or you're probably, inputting the guideline, the guide text inside the box itself. And as people are filling in, the text is guiding them. So at an experience level, you're thinking guardrails. So that's good. That's a really good idea. Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
I think if you look at the flow, right, possible errors are that they can't find what they want, right? Now login is I think so component level. So there you can put this like email ID is wrong, but I think you can just put a timer over there so that they come in and then they look for what they want. If they're satisfied, let them log in.
Explain the idea again.
No, I'm saying that here I think so the biggest error what we can face is we might not have what the user wants. So normally if you put a topic page first and let them search what they want.
But no, let's bring it back. So our discussion is only on the sign up experience.
But you said an entire flow, right?
Yeah, so it's only sign up experience.
If I get what I want, I would try to log in as much as time I want it, right?
No, but I'm saying only look at the sign up experience. Do not look at the browsing. That's a different experience.
Okay. Cool.
Okay, so let's actually think through this. Okay, this is where a little bit of systematic thinking is required. When you're looking at error prevention, what kinds of errors can happen? Okay, there are 4 classes of errors that can happen. Okay, the first class of errors is you have no data. Okay, the second class of errors is you have some data. Right. The third class of errors can again be broken into 2 sections, which is you have wrong data, but somebody has unknowingly given you wrong data or knowingly given you wrong data. Right. So that is where you're looking at 4 different classes of errors. Okay. So when you have no data, how do you do error prevention? Right. Simple, straightforward experience is you basically say, hey, you need to fill this information. You kind of do not let, maybe you're progressively allowing people to continue on where you're saying, okay, fill this information, then the next one is available. Fill the next one, that the next one is available, right? And again, coming back to what Simran said, I know I'm breaking a rule in the previous one. Okay, but it's okay to break the rule because I'm only focused on this problem. Okay, and this is kind of like a fashion show, right? I mean, when you do fashion shows, the clothes that you see may not be all be practical, but the point is you are exploring extreme solutions so that you can see which parts of those solutions you like and you're putting it together in your final solution. So it's okay. In this case, our idea is to explore extreme solutions and think about it. Okay, so here you might actually say no data, you're basically progressively presenting it. That's potentially one way. Or you can basically, break down the data into smaller chunks and say, okay, tell us about yourself, then tell us about how we can reach out to you, right? So easy to more difficult. So that way you can kind of address the, the focus and the attention that the user gives to each of those elements. Right, and you are also controlling the progress at any point in time. Potentially, if you have some data, you're saying, yeah, I have maybe 3 fields, one of the fields is not full. You can always give that error messaging both at the submit button and on top, wherever it is, so it's very obvious. If you have somebody's unknowingly given you wrong data, then you want to, again, it's the same strategy as, you have some validators on the spot that are validating or, that are telling you need to do something. Or if it is somebody is knowingly giving you wrong data, then potentially you want to tell people, hey, we will send you an email so that you can access our system. So please make sure your email is correct. Right? So there's a different kind of messaging that you can give. So now when you start thinking about all of that, now when you start applying all of these solutions into your homepage, your sign up and your topics, it's a different experience altogether. Right? So everybody on the same page on this?
Sir, I have a question.
Yes, go ahead, Varun.
You said unknown wrong data and known wrong data. For unknown wrong data, you validate it through some OTP. So known wrong data is also validation, right? So
no. So for example, let us say that I don't want to be contacted.
Okay. Oh, I
have to give a telephone number. I randomly make up a telephone number, put it in there.
Okay.
Right. So there is no cost associated for me to give you wrong information, isn't it?
Yeah.
So what you're doing is, in the experience, you're saying there is a cost associated with giving me wrong information.
Okay. But still you're validating, right? At the end of the day.
You will continue to validate anyways. Okay. But in addition to validation, you're adding the cost element.
What is cost element? I didn't understand that part.
Cost is if you give me a wrong email address, I'll send an email, but if you can't access it, you can't get into the system.
Right. Okay.
That's a cost.
Yeah.
I'll ban your IP.
Right. Or I'm banning your IP if let us say people are spamming me, I just ban. If it's like knowingly giving me wrong data, right? There is an experience where if more than 10 people come in, I basically take them to a CAPTCHA, right? Which is a whole different experience where you want to do error prevention, isn't it? So this is something common, for example, when you use VPNs.
Right.
Okay. Public VPNs, if you're using them and you try to access Google or whatever, that is how they do the error prevention. Because what Google is saying is, are you just spamming me? Are you a bot? Are you real? I don't know. Right. So I'm going to give you some kind of captcha or some kind of verification. Tell me you're a human.
Right.
Right. So they are managing the known wrong data problem.
Right. Again. Okay.
Right. So maybe if you can, on our workflow itself, let's add that, the CAPTCHA process.
Sure.
Right. So when you're about to sign up, if you have multiple people coming from the places, there's some kind of suspicious activity, you're adding a CAPTCHA in that experience. Right. And probably that CAPTCHA comes even before register. It comes between join and register.
Right.
Because you want to capture it, you want to stop the problem from happening as early as possible. Because if 1,000 bots come in and hit submit, the error has already happened. My server has to handle it. Right. So you're basically saying, how early do I want to stop the problem? You put a CAPTCHA and then you move forward. CAPTCHA, so you have to have a branch sort of. So one will be join and directly go to register, and the other one is join, CAPTCHA, and then register. Okay. So there you have two different experiences, two different flows to address the use case number 4.
Another flow.
No. Same flow. You have either a CAPTCHA or you have directly register. CAPTCHA and register, or directly to register.
Okay.
No, it's not join via CAPTCHA. You're detecting that multiple people are coming. There's an error state.
Okay. Yeah.
You're detecting multiple people coming from the same IP address, and you feel that there is some kind of a spam or a bot attack or something, whatever is, something weird is happening. right? And potentially why this is also a problem is, let us say, when you look at Google suggestions and all that, right? So that depends on what people are searching for. So one way that you can actually tune the algorithm for you is you can have thousands of people searching for the same thing and clicking on the same result. So that way Google realizes that, okay, this is a common keyword and this is the first page. So you can actually defeat the Google system by spamming. And so what they do is they actually use the captcha systems and all that stuff to stop those spams, because otherwise it's going to train their machine learning models in the wrong way. Cool? Okay. Any questions, thoughts on this? Awesome. Now let's go to the next heuristic. Okay. The next heuristic is recognition rather than recall. Okay. Now, what is recognition rather than recall? Okay. Recognition rather than recall is you're helping people instinctively understand, okay, this is what I'm looking for. Okay. So what happens is not everybody thinks about the same, artifact or document or whatever in the same manner. Right? So if I show all of you one document, some of you might say, oh, that document had this keyword. Some of you might remember this was a PDF document. Some of you might remember, oh yeah, the document title was this. So different people would remember different elements of those, of that element that they want to remember, right? So now the question is, in the sign-up process, there are many different elements that kind of come in, right? So how do you allow people to do the recognition rather than recall? Okay, so the intention again is allowing people to not make mistakes. If you do not have recognition rather than recall, then there's a lot of trial and error and all that stuff until you find the correct document, and then you're kind of moving forward. So the question here is, how do you reduce these trial and error experiments in the sign-up experience? Okay. All right, 30 seconds. Go for it. And again, the trick here is, if you're not able to connect, right, recognition rather than recall. So the question is, what are the things that you can forget when you're signing up? Right? Where are the problems that you'd have? So once you understand where the problems are, then you can come back and you can design for it. Is it possible that people will forget in a sign-up experience? This is a little bit of an interesting toughie here. Go ahead, Simran.
I don't know if this makes sense, but assuming that I'm using Google Chrome or something like that, and I've already logged into Google Chrome, can that data from Gmail be already auto-filled here, where my name, email address, and phone number and email is given, location is already tracked,
Absolutely.
and I just have to enter industry and rule?
Right. So absolutely, but I'll have an argument for that. Okay?
Also, one more thing. For the phone number part, would recognition be implemented in the case of an OTP to validate the phone number? Would that also be coming under the scope of recognition?
No.
Like in case, okay, that's actually an error prevention sort of a thing, I think.
Yeah, so I think there are some interesting ways that you can apply it in OTP. I can see that use case, but it's a little bit too advanced. Okay, let's not go there yet.
Okay. Yeah, but you were saying about the pre-filled thing.
About?
I was saying something and you were about to say before I asked you about the OTP. So I was talking about having everything pre-filled.
So you were talking about autofill.
Yeah.
Okay. Now let's actually think about it. You are a product. Okay. Autofill is done by the browser. Right. How would you implement recognition rather than recall? Because I see a lot of designers will struggle with this. Right. So how would you implement your approach if the browser has all the information and you will really have no information?
Like in other words, if this had to be a native app or something like that.
No, no, no.
No,
There
because
is
that
an
way
answer for it. There is
I'm
an
not
answer for
dependent
it.
on.
I'm challenging everybody here. All of you with engineering backgrounds, tell me what you think it is. It is possible.
Could you repeat the question again?
Yeah.
Please?
So you're saying recognition rather than recall may. Let's do autofill.
Yeah.
Okay. But the engineering guy says, how do you do autofill? Okay. Because that's a browser has the information. I don't have the information. The user has come to my website for the first time. So there is no way I can suck up all that information from the browser.
Then provide a social login because all that information is already there.
Possible, right?
But
So
already
that's a
something I
good one.
covered in.
But that's a good one. But that's a different problem. There is a solution for the problem I'm offering. So anybody want to speak up?
But I believe the cookies plays a major role there.
No. Cookies, see, if cookies won't capture your name, and I mean, see, even if the browser is capturing your name, the browser somehow has to share it with your website, right? So even if you're there the first time, the cookie is just saying this person has come. That's it. It doesn't know what your name is or what your address is. That's a privacy breach. Okay. So what websites do is they actually use a common naming convention and a common coding convention for all these items. Okay. So when a browser sees a password field, it assumes that I want to give passwords. When a browser says address and all that, so when you tag all your elements correctly, okay, it allows the browser to recognize this is the kind of information that is being requested from me, and therefore it suggests, do you want to autofill?
Yeah, we see it all the time now.
Exactly. And that is part of UX, right? That is your responsibility to make sure everything is tagged correctly. So you're leveraging the browser autofill. Okay. So Simran, good idea, right? Awesome idea. It's just an implementation wise. I wanted to just do a sidebar on that. So good stuff. Go ahead, Ishita. Oh, Ishita's idea is already done. Okay. Go for it, Anita.
For that, the cookies that we were discussing, I thought that cookies will be relevant for the recurring user. We can show them what they have already seen, so that will help them connect. And with respect to sign up, I thought of social login. And once we have the social sign up or social login, then we can ask the location industry.
Right. So again, notice when we're doing this ideation, we are laser focused on only one experience, sign up.
Yeah.
Okay. So don't think about any of the other experiences. And we are laser focused only on that one heuristic at a time. Okay. And those ideas may be completely opposite and conflicting with each other, but that's okay. Right. You're looking at extreme ideas to finally think about what is the final solution set that you want. Okay. So I like your idea with the social login. So the way I would actually look at it when we are looking at this is, okay, it's like, okay, yeah. Recognition rather than recall. So what are the things that people forget? Well, there's a lot of social logins that are also available, right? The biggest challenge that I find is, I don't know if you've done it, but for me, I don't know whether I've logged in with my, Facebook account or my Google account. I have no idea. So I end up sometimes having multiple accounts with the same product and wondering like, why don't I have this? And Medium is very notorious for that. Right? Because you don't know, did I set up an account with Google? Did I manually use my Google email and then set up an account? Or what did I do? I have no idea. Right? And so one really simple way is you just put in your email address. Okay. You might have the two options, right? It's like, hey, I notice you gave your email address. I believe you have a Google account with us. Sign in with Google, right? Or I'm sending you an email, sign in from there. So at sign up, do a fork. You say sign in with Google, you can manually sign in, or you can automatically sign in using your Google credentials. So the system is telling you, I noticed that you have credentials, sign in with your credentials, or I just sent you an email. The system does it for you. Right? And again, what I'm saying is this is not the only way. All your ideas are good, right? So your sketches are also good, but I'm just giving one flavor of it. Okay, awesome. So everybody okay on this? Go ahead, Simran.
Prasad, I just have a doubt based on the autofill thing. So that is very browser dependent, right? But let's say this was a native app or a mobile app or something like that, that is independent of any browser. So in that scenario, how would autofill or any of those things come into play?
So even if it's a native app, you still can get your data through your system, right? So because all those login information is stored, like for example, Google stores your passwords.
Hmm.
Apple, I believe, also has a similar system, right?
Yeah.
However, you need to be able to, if the question that is as simple, or the suggestion that I'm saying is, wherever possible, interact with the systems that are going to be, or interact with the other software that will potentially be there to help you.
No, I get this for the social login part because half my data is already there.
Right.
But for something completely new,
Huh.
where I haven't, let's say I'm on incognito or something, and there's no way of them knowing. So
Right.
then, in that case, how would recognition be implementable? Like the
So
autofill
there's
example.
actually sort of one thing you didn't do was you didn't do the manual versus the other one. So you have to have a flow for that as well. So you just said sign up with Google, right? That's not what I'm saying, right? When you put in your email, okay, the software automatically detects whether you have an account with them manually or you have a Google account with them.
Okay.
Right? And then it gives you the suggestion.
Right.
Right. But yeah, yours is a separate question. So can you repeat the question again, Simran?
No, I said that, let's say that I'm on incognito or something, that there's no way of them knowing. So autofill is not an option.
Mm-hmm.
So in a situation like that, but I want autofill to sort of accelerate my process.
Yeah, so this is, this solution does not require autofill, the one that I'm drawing.
Okay.
Right. However, the solution that was given for autofill is still valid. It's still a good idea. Right.
Okay.
But it is predicated, even if actually autofill works, even if you're in incognito mode. Right. Because what is incognito mode? It is not letting the website know who you are, but your browser definitely knows who you are. You understand the difference?
Yeah.
Right? So when you are in an incognito mode, your browser is basically not letting your website know anything about you until you explicitly say yes.
Got it.
Okay. Once you put in your email address and say, okay, log in with your thing, you can still log in. There is no harm in that. The same system will apply.
All right. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. Awesome. Let's go on to the next one. Now, the next one is help users recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. Okay. So what are the consequences of helping people recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors? Okay. If you do not have a diagnosis and a recovery kind of a process, you are not, your onboarding is going to be severely hampered. That's number one. Number two, your cost of acquisition is going to increase, the cost to acquire a user, because you are basically going to have to do more advertising to get to that person. So let's say if you have 1,000 people, earlier you were able to get sign-ins from, let's say, 50% of those people. Now, if you do not help people recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors, that number might drop to 10%, right? So now you have to advertise just as much to do that, or you need to have customer service or whatever. So this has real world business problem, which is, the cost of acquisition is significantly high. Okay. So the challenge that is given for you is, how do you help people? Now the error has happened. You have no control over the error. Okay. How do you help people recognize, diagnose and recover from the error? All right. Go ahead.
I have a question.
Go ahead, Simran.
I have a question. I don't have a solution. So may I ask? So when you said recognize and diagnose and stuff, right? A few of the ideas that I have is already something that had been discussed in the earlier flows. Like, for example, is that okay for this?
It's okay. My challenge would be, try not to use the same idea, try to give a different idea. Okay. But if you still stuck on the same idea, that's fine. You can put it in there, but challenge yourself, right? That's what this whole exercise is. It's about challenging yourself to go beyond of what you think is possible.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. So go ahead, Ishita.
Yeah, first idea came to my mind how to think about it. So, what is stopping to letting me register? So that is one.
Mhm.
So based on that, maybe it's already there, maybe redundant data. So I'll just diagnose this is the problem. Then I'll just inform to the user this email ID is already registered with us, and we are giving you a option to, if you forgot your password, you
Mhm.
can continue with a different flow.
Mhm.
That
Okay. So the idea that you're saying is, can you say it in 10 words or less?
sure. So basically, leading to the another scenario, forgot password. It's a helping user if they forgot the
Okay.
password.
Okay. So this is the interesting use case. The use case is, let us say the person already has an account.
Yeah.
Then you're saying, hey, I notice you have an account, take them into the forgot password process.
Correct.
Right? That's good. That's a really good way of recognizing. Okay. What else? So challenging you, what kind of errors can happen here? So you can probably, you may not have filled in certain kind of information, right? So there's an error of omission. What other error can you have?
Entering wrong location. There's a location thing.
Yeah, so you basically entered wrong information. Don't just think at a one form level, but you've entered the wrong information. So you've entered the wrong location or whatever. So it's like, okay, how do you check it? Right? Or possibly, your server went down. Right? So you have errors that are out of your control. Okay. The person's internet stopped working. Okay. Or your server stopped responding. Okay, those are also errors that you can handle, right? So these are errors you can control, errors you cannot control. Okay, for the errors that you cannot control, the one way that you can say is you save up all the data. You save the data locally and you say, okay, yeah, the server is not working, so the page is not going to load. I'm going to wait for your internet to come back up before you can send it, but your data is safe, right? So that's one way that you can solve the problem. Okay. Now, what other error can happen? Let's say somebody deliberately put in some data that was invalid. Okay. So you come to a place where, let's say, this person gave some data, and then now you are reaching a place where, let's say, you can't do anything from there. Okay. Then you probably give them a message saying, hey, some error happened. Here's some kind of contact information, or here's some help text or whatever. That's one way you can help people recover from those errors. Okay. Or the third way that you can say is, if it's error that is controllable, you bring them back to that one specific page and you highlight it and say, hey, an error happened here. Can you fix this? Okay. And explain why that error, why you think that is an error. Okay. So that is one way. So for example, let's say I put in information, the system doesn't think it's accurate. Okay. So it can always say, yeah, we don't think it's accurate, but if you're confident, go ahead and enter it anyways. So you're giving the option to kind of continue onwards, but you're still bringing them up and asking them to look at it again. Be careful about it, right? Or you can, so that's where you can start thinking about it. Error messages is one strategy, or like helping people focus on the specific elements is another strategy, or giving them like contact information is a third strategy. So these are all different strategies that you need to think about when you do your workflow. Okay. Now, another way that you can possibly do, this is something that, the software designers are, very familiar with, is what they do is they chunk their code into smaller and smaller pieces to figure out where exactly the error is. So if you change the experience itself, make it smaller and smaller, instead of asking all of that in one shot, ask for 2 pieces of information at one page, 2 other pieces of information on the place. When you start chunking and lengthening the process, that's also another way you can recognize where did that error happen and how do you fix it. Right? As opposed to making people do 40 errors and then you make them go back and you say, okay, now you fix all 40 of them. Right? Go ahead, Varun.
I have a question. So
Yes.
is there a possibility where when the server is down or something, right?
Mhm.
So you inform them that this is something technically wrong, but gather the one piece of information, which is the communication information, which is email, and then we'll let them know when things are up, like sending an email to them, to when the things are up. Is there
Yeah,
a
but the point is, how do you do it? Your server is shut down. So you cannot do anything from a server perspective. Whatever has to reinitiate has to be done on the client side, right? So your browser itself might have code. This is the perfect, Google does a really good job of this. When you're sending email, try disconnecting your internet. What happens, right? It'll just say your internet is disconnected. Nothing happened. Your data is still safe. When the internet is connected, we will continue to sync. Right? Or for example, when you do Google Docs and your internet is disconnected, okay, it'll tell you like, yeah, you cannot edit. It stops you from editing the Google Docs, because if you do too many edits and then if let's say somebody else is working on it simultaneously somewhere else, it doesn't want a conflict tomorrow. So because multiple people might be working on the same document, it will basically stop the people who are offline from editing. Okay. But once it's connected, your edit privileges are given back to you. So these are strategies that you kind of apply when you think about the recognize, diagnose, and recover from errors. Now, a lot of these cases, what Google does is does the recognition, diagnosis, and recovery automatically, right? And it just tells you, by the way, I did this, right? But when when you might not have the power of that kind of an infrastructure or all that stuff, or the luxury to do that level of robust coding. But you still can do other things without taking it to that level.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Cool. Awesome. Cool. Let's go on to the next one. The next one is flexibility and efficiency of use. Okay. Let's think about flexibility and efficiency. Now, flexibility and efficiency are two separate things, and we've put them, it's in the heuristics, it's been said together. They always say it together, but they're two separate activities. You can make things more flexible without making them more efficient or even less efficient, right? Or you can make things efficient while sacrificing flexibility. Okay. So treat them as two separate activities. Sometimes when both of them work out, it's awesome. Okay. But don't worry about, oh, I only have to give one idea. This might be a place where you give 2 or 3 ideas. I'm only going to look at flexibility. I'm only going to look at efficiency. But for my example, I'm going to say, okay, yeah, you can look at one or both at the same time. It's your choice. Okay. What is flexibility and efficiency of use? Flexibility and efficiency of use is this. Okay. Now, there are two use cases in that. Now, users have a certain mindset, a way of doing things. So they want the system to work in their mental model. That's one way. Two, your users are also evolving over time. Okay. So for example, first time users might just basically use the mouse and click everywhere. But when you get more and more experience, all you might just use the keyboard, tab, 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 and get it done. Right. So what happens is, as people have more expertise, their expectations of the product change and they want it to be more efficient. Initially, it's learnability that's a problem, but as you go later on, it is more on the efficiency of use and the flexibility of use that more experienced users would want. Okay, so the challenge here is, this is where flexibility and efficiency is where you are creating habits, right? So this is creating the stickiness of the product. Okay, so classic example is with Apple and stuff like that, right? So they have a certain way of doing things, to minimize, maximize, and to close a window. Now Windows has a different way. So for people who are using Windows, they find it really hard to go use Apple. For people who are using Apple, they find it really hard to use Windows because it's a stickiness component, right? So this is where you can create a unique selling proposition for your product and make it sticky for your product. That is the business outcome here. Okay. So if you want to make it flexible and efficient to use, how would you do so? All right. Let's go back to the original workflow. Now you have about, say, 30 seconds. Let's ideate. I know some of you guys are putting stuff in the chat box, but I would just say, raise your hand and come talk, because I'd love to hear you talk out here. Go ahead, Varun.
Giving an option to sign up through multiple ways, you know, email or by phone number or like social login. That is actually flexibility. Efficiency is also similar, right? Like I know I can understand that these two are different. To exactly knock it out on a specific thing is where, you know, I have some challenges. Where so here the efficiency is increase. I mean, doing the process faster, right? So even when you log in, sign up through Gmail, or probably with you know, sign up through Gmail is probably the easiest one, because once you click on it, it will automatically sign you up. But then if you try to do alternative ways in terms of like probably like phone number or something like that, then it is you have to send an OTP and then you have to. So that's where the efficiency is slightly more. Is it? That's my question.
Right. So efficiency is speed. Ease. Those are all the things that you can think of. Right? Make it easier, make it faster, make it more. Seamless. So those are all efficiency elements.
Right.
Right. So your idea is social logins.
Multiple login methods.
Multiple login. Okay. That will make it more, obviously, yeah, absolutely make it more flexible, because you could have any kind of account and that's there. But the question is it making it more efficient is a question mark for me, but that's good. Right? Go ahead, Anita.
So for flexibility, I've thought that they can continue as guests, they can skip the login. And for efficiency, it comes that we want to sign up faster. Like time concept comes whenever we talks about efficiency. Right. We'll ask only email. They'll continue. We'll send a magic link to their email. They can log in from there, and rest of the details they can add it later on by going into their profile section.
So that is actually a really good idea. So the last idea is actually gold, right? Where you're saying, I don't want all the information right now. I'm going to progressively take the information as you engage with my product.
Yeah.
Right? But the most important information I will take first. So when you're signing up, what is the most important piece of information is identifying that individual. What is the purpose of sign up is, one, to identify, and two, to create a gate. So you are only the appropriate person is accessing the stuff that they need to. Yeah. So there's a gatekeeping element as well as there's an identification element. So yes, absolutely, right? You can take progressive information and you can basically say, okay, I'm going to give you the flexibility of logging in through different platforms. Good. Cool. Go ahead, Simran.
So I was thinking a little bit along what Anita said. To just completely discard the sign-in process and only show it when value is required. Like for example, in YouTube, only when I like something, I'm required to sign up. Only if I want to save something to a playlist sign up is required. So until then, you can just use this freely because it's for the public, right?
Right. That's a really interesting one. So if you think this spam or somebody created really bad content or whatever,
yeah, time to value sort of.
Yeah, so there is like a clear incentive for somebody to do something. That's when you make them do it. Okay, that's a good one. I would accept that as well. But that is efficiency, but it's still not beating the business goal, right? I still want to be able to identify the user. So there's a trade-off on the number of people you'll be able to identify, but it's efficient.
So for the identifying the user part, anyway, the browser data, IP address, all those things are being.
But that will not identify you individually. You do not do that.
I mean, similar to what Kevin said about YouTube, where they've already understood the kind of things I'm probably interested in. And, they give me recommendations, but if they want more customized recommendations, then you would require.
Yeah, but that is, YouTube is customizing to you without knowing who you are.
Yeah, exactly.
You understand?
Yeah.
YouTube doesn't know you are Simran. Right?
Yeah.
What YouTube will know is Simran, this individual X has clicked on these following videos, right? This individual X has done X amount of activities, right? It does not know your other information. Now, when you look at this experience, you need to capture email. YouTube, you cannot do that, right? So you need to capture telephone number. You can't do that. YouTube would not know what your telephone number and your name is, right? Until and unless your browser is somehow talking to YouTube and giving that information.
Okay. But then the fundamental question is, what's the point of getting an email address and thing if that information is not going to be valuable for me? Like the only probable use case for an email address is and phone numbers for some sort of promotion, I mean, if you're just going to sign up and then not use it, then there's absolutely no use of you even being on the product, right? But if you're, let's say, on the product and you've been interacting with it, then the software would understand that this particular user has done these many things. Therefore, these are the things that they like. These are the things they can recommend and stuff like that.
Right. So again,
that's why I said that
why do you take login information, right? Two reasons. Okay. First reason is to identify you, because it is somehow important for the business to identify you, right? Either for a long-term relationship or to kind of curate the things that you like or whatever. There's an identification element. Okay. And the second thing is gatekeeping. Okay. So I do not want people to get into my experience that are not authorized. Right. So for those two reasons, you will need to take the information. You need to take some kind of identifying information. Okay. Cool. So now let's do this. Flexibility and efficiency of use. Let's start thinking through it, right? So simple flexibility and efficiency of use is, if I want to make it just flexible, all I'm going to do is, okay, here are 10 different login styles, login, right? Now that is absolutely not efficient, but it is flexible, right? Now, if I want to make it efficient and flexible, the way I might actually want to approach it is, hey, give me your email address. Okay. Based on your email address, I will tell you like, okay, yeah, I know, you basically log in and you continue on, or you basically say, okay, I do not have this email address. So maybe you are not logged in through Google, but you're logged in through other places, right? So I kind of show you which of the others. So you have multiple ways of logging in, but you are not, bombarded with all of them at the same time. Okay, so the system is somehow choosing for you and saying, okay, what's the most popular way? And the second most popular way, the third most popular way. And that's how it's basically helping you get there.
What do you mean, like, popular way, the most popular way?
See, if you say 80% of the people use their Gmail accounts to sign up.
Yeah.
Right? 10% of the people use their LinkedIn accounts to sign up. Right? 5% of the people use Facebook to sign up, and the last 5 people will use 5 different ways to sign up. Okay. So in theory, I know the most popular way is Gmail. So just give me your email address.
Yeah.
Right. If your email address is not in my database, right? Well, I know that it's not Gmail. Use other stuff.
Oh, okay. So if it is a Gmail email, you probably recommend Gmail. Otherwise, you use
or just recommend the most popular ones. Don't recommend all the others, right? So if you have 15 ones and you know these 3 are the most popular ones, just show those 3 and then say, these are the 3 most popular ones. And we think you have an account with this, right? Or if you have already, and you kind of help people decide which one it is and then get them to move forward. Right. So that way you are not only are you flexible, you are also helping the experience be a little bit more efficient for the user as well. Okay, cool. All right, let's go on to the next one. Next one is aesthetic and minimalistic design. Okay. Now, what are the implications of aesthetic and minimalistic design? Right? If you're not aesthetic and if you're not minimalistic, the chances are that people are going to spend a lot more time to get the same task done than was before. Right? Because they are overloaded with a lot of information. Somebody has to sit down and select what I want to do. Okay. Now, the second aspect, aesthetic, is also like, the aesthetics kind of help create trust and engagement and all of that stuff. So, you either trust the experience or you do not trust, right? So there's those kinds of emotional elements that are kind of governed by the aesthetic aspects of this rule, right? So how do you create the same experience that is both aesthetic and minimalistic? Okay, so aesthetic is basically saying, okay, yeah, I trust this, it's comprehensive, I'm going to find what I want here, right? Those are the basic decisions that you make when you come to a website. All right. Go ahead, Simran.
I have an idea.
Okay,
Should I share now or wait for 30 seconds?
we can wait for a couple of seconds more. Let's just wait. All right, go for it, Simran.
Yeah, so to tackle I've separated my idea into two. To tackle the aesthetics part, it's going to be heavily dependent on the mood board that I have set, and sort of visually develop a relationship with the user. For example, if I want to establish trust, I make sure that make sure that my website has got trust wherever it can in all possible ways. That's one. And for the minimalist design, I would sort of take a few ideas that I shared earlier, and I would only have email address and I just only have first name. I mean, I would actually just cut off everything, just have email address and create password. That's about it. And as the experience goes on, little questions that, where are you located? Or probably as you're using the product, anyway, IP is going to be tracked that you're located in this particular place. So that's going to be there. Alerts like give us your phone number so we can, sort of send you whatever, add you to a particular reading group or something like that. So that could be something but that's going to come out later. So the first most important thing I need is the email address to create a profile in my database.
So what you're basically doing is you're looking at this as what is the bare minimum I need to build a
Yeah.
relationship? Right?
Yeah.
The second thing, aesthetics does not necessarily mean colors only, right? Or
Not
layouts
colors.
only. It does not necessarily mean only colors and layouts, right? You can also use content.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Like anything that communicates trust. Like for example, on the UX on the college website, you had the earlier design had Tom Walter and the people from Google, and then you and all the awards and stuff. So that built trust. So things like that.
Yeah, but so I would just take that to the next level, and I would say, show 2 or 3 pieces of content already, right? You can say these are the trending pieces of content on our platform, right? And it doesn't have to be colors, layouts, mood boards, and all that, right? That's separate, right? You can do it, but at a workflow level, you're basically showing content, right? Allowing people to explore the content or whatever on that page, on the same page, without going to a different page. And then very clearly putting the call to action for signing up. You give your email address, done.
Yeah, probably some reputed authors, like snapshots of their blogs. Or
it could be snapshot, it could be content, whatever it is, right? But you're focused on, it's a strategy is focused on content and unambiguity. So, if you look at Google, that's what it is, right? So everything, what is the first thing that people want to do? I just want to search, right? And by the way, here's other things, right? So the same thing, you can basically say minimalism. You just basically say, what's the first thing that users want to do? They want to see, is there content that is relevant to me? Yes, there is content. Then sign up. Done. 2 things. Don't put anything else.
Yeah.
Right? And that whole experience is predefined as that. If you're signing up, you don't have additional pages. You just sign up. Maybe you're getting an email and then you're logged in. Done. Right? Cool. All right. So everybody on the same page with this? Okay. Now you come to help and documentation. Okay. Help and documentation is basically apply help and documentation where the error has happened or a situation that's out of the control has happened, and now you want to somehow help people figure out, how do I get there? Or even while they're using the product, the product might be way too complex. So you want people to kind of understand, like, okay, what are you going to do with it? Now, there's also the use case where, it's not complex, but it's questionable. So let's say, for example, I'm asking for your telephone number. In this case, it's very atypical that I'm going to ask your location. And it's very atypical, the kind of fields that are being asked here, right? So in that case, most people will have a question in their mind. It's like, okay, why are you asking me for my location in my industry, right? They're fundamental questions. So that is also important. So help and documentation is all the situations where somebody would look to you and say, why are you doing this? right? Or, I don't understand this. What is the logic? Or, this is unreasonable. Or, it's like, I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Those are the kinds of situations when help and documentation come in. And again, my advice for people is when you're doing design, and this is something that I want to state for everyone, is don't just look at help and documentation as, I'm going to create a 40-page document, or I'm going to create a master documentation, and, the person will figure it out. No, right? Help and documentation is the last resort. You have to plan for it, but, ideally 99% of your users should not even be thinking about help and documentation. Okay. Now let's think about the worst case scenario. People are having questions. They don't know why you're doing what you're doing. Your whole credibility is on the line, because if you don't document it correctly, you don't help people answer the question when they need it correctly, you're going to have help and documentation issues. Okay. How would you solve this? Same workflow. Go ahead, Simran.
My solution is based on a possibility. Is there a way of Gmail or any of these email services to say that this email address is actually stored with them? Like if I've given them a wrong email address, then like if I misspelled the name, but I've spelled at gmail.com or at outlook.com, then that email address is going to go to someone else. And that profile is going to be registered in someone else, or it's probably going to recognize that this is an actual email when it's probably not. So is there a way that Google, like I as a business who's designing this workflow, can get the data from Google saying that yes, this email address is something that we have created and this is the user for it? Is that possible?
So not really, right? So imagine the worst case scenario, somebody creates a spam bot and goes through all possibilities of email and like basically validates it with Google.
Okay.
Right. So there is a huge, that's why I don't think that these, Google and all these guys will give you that upfront, or unless it's a paid service of some sort, because it's also business opportunity. Right.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if that is entirely a feasible solution. So go ahead, Anita.
So I've thought of why we are asking this. We can give a tooltip and we can say that why we are asking. We are asking your industry to give you relevant feeds. We are asking your role to help you find like-minded people. In that way, they'll feel trusted and they can enter the data.
Right. Yeah. So you can do tooltips. And another add-on to that is you can also segment your experiences. So it's like, hey, we want your information because of this reason. And then you ask for their personal information. And then you ask, we want to be able to contact you. So tell us what's the best way to contact you. Right? Oh, by the way, if you don't have this, you can still validate through your telephone number. So we want to give you the option, right? Or it might also be like, this is optional. This is mandatory. That's also help in documentation.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah, all of those work. Good. Go ahead, Ishita.
We can use a chatbot to clarify the things it's there.
Yeah, you can use a chatbot potentially, but
because sometimes
it's right there, so you can just ask the question. So yeah, that works. So you have a complete chat experience that you can build into the ecosystem. And again, notice we are not just talking at a feature level. We are talking at an experience level. So you can chat immediately, get answers. That's great. Okay. You can potentially, also say, hey, talk to our community. If you have questions, you give a link to go talk to the community. They go to the community pages, because not a lot of websites today do not offer customer service, right? Unless it's a paid service. So you might just say, okay, talk to the community if you have a doubt about this, right? So that might be a possibility there. Yes. So there's a community engagement. Go ahead, Nirupama. Is it possible to turn on your camera? Oh, no, you can't. Of course. You told me you're traveling. Go ahead, Nirupama. Ask your question.
Yeah, sending the information to the mail ID if at all they have any doubts on filling the form.
Sending information to a certain mail ID.
no, if the user is not able to fill that form, there will be a contact email ID where they can contact that.
Yeah, that's actually fascinating. So help and documentation is also an example where, let's say you weren't able to complete something, that information, this is something that I've seen work really well in sales websites. When I'm going to buy a product and I just in the, or Apollo 24/7 app, I've seen that happen a couple of times where I put something in my cart, but I don't check it out. I actually get a call within 5 or 10 minutes and somebody tells me, hey, you have something in your cart, but you're not able to check it out. So do you want me to help you with it? Right. Now, notice in this case, help and documentation is not a website. It's actually a physical call, but the software has supported it. So at a workflow level, it's a very radically, interesting way of doing it. So really good idea. Good example, Nirupama. So go ahead.
Yeah, a kind of idea box, like something it's wrong, they can suggest or recommend something, and if it is not possible from the system side, you can raise as it's a problem, you can fix it that way.
So can you explain it again, please?
Like an idea box, if you find something wrong and you are not finding anywhere, even in the help and documentation and all, you can raise as an idea, like you can fix that way.
Oh, so that's interesting. So instead of saying raise a ticket, say give us an idea, right? We'll fix it for you. So that's a very interesting perspective, because not only is it help in documentation, but it's also making the person a partner in the journey of evolving the product. Right. And you might just send them emails like, hey, this is a really good idea. Now, Google also does that, like found a bug, found a problem, send it to us. And then you get notifications. Yes, this bug was solved, or this is the status of this bug. It tells you all of that stuff. Right. So that's a very interesting one. That's a very atypical example, but it's a really good example. Right. Awesome. So again, when you're thinking about help and documentation, it could be very simple as, hey, like what Nirupama had said, if you're stuck somewhere, somebody picks up the phone, calls you, or you have a chat experience somewhere, or, you are basically, you get into the email thread and then over email, somebody is resolving it, or you go to a community site where people are engaging on the community and coming back. Right. So all of these ideas work, and you can do workflows for them. Right. Now, the last one is you're talking about consistency and standards. Now, this is a special one, right? Now, how would you do consistency and standards? Now, consistency and standards are, what is the purpose of consistency and standards? Right? The purpose of consistency and standards is you want, you want all the experience to be consistent so that there is no friction points in the experience. Okay, when it is inconsistent, like the simple example that I can say is like, when you're climbing stairs, if one step is smaller than the other step or whatever, people will trip and fall. So consistency and standards allow for a seamless workflow where people are not thinking about what I'm doing, they're just doing it. Right. And so when you make people think, that is when the issue starts off. And it also creates opportunities for mistakes. If you do not have consistency and standards, you're creating a lot of errors in the system. Okay. So the idea with consistency and standards, I would say is, my argument is, yeah, it's a good thing to ideate, but also, I would say it's actually a much more mechanical thing where you're looking and saying, what are the standards that are out there, right? So it's not an ideation element, it's a more of a research element where you're saying, what are the standards out there that apply to a similar problem like this? And am I within the standards or outside of the standards? And then I'm basically implementing that. Okay, so I wouldn't actually call it a ideation component. I would call it a research component. And that's one of the reasons why I would not ideate on it here. Okay, now when you do all this, you've got 10 ideas, all of you have these ideas. Now your next step is just look at these 10 ideas and say, what are the stuff that is the best, right? Do pros and cons for each of the ideas and say, what is the best idea that I want to apply? Sometimes the best idea might be combinations of different elements, right? And that's okay. And so what will happen by the time you're done is your workflow is so comprehensive and so well thought out that there is no more, argument or discussion about it. If somebody says, why did you do this? It's this use case. Why did you do that? It's that use case. So people know, like, you've already thought about it. There's no point. And what I've realized is when you do these techniques and then you present your work, it also becomes very easy because you and your stakeholders can sit down and prioritize. Well, okay, what is my MVP? What is the most important thing I need to launch? What is my second most important thing? What is my third most important thing? So maybe community is not that important. It's priority 3, right? Maybe having a chat experience is probably really easy because you can probably get a third-party chat experience and code it or whatever. So, okay, so chatbot, yeah, we can do it, right? So you can start prioritizing in consultation with your partners, and you're still solving the problem comprehensively, but but in partnership with everybody. But at the end of the day, it's a part of the solution set that you've thought about. It's not a radically different solution set. All right. So everybody clear with this? Good with this? Okay. Just like you did this, you can do exactly the same thing when you're doing your workflow wireframes, right? At an individual screen level. Okay. Then you do exactly the same thing when you're doing with your visuals, right? You can literally do the same philosophy across multiple ways of thinking about across multiple artifacts, and you'll get similarly good results at each of those levels. Okay, so I'm assuming that you guys are going to do this going forward, right? Don't tell me it was like I only did 3 ideas. No, all 10 ideas or all 9 ideas. Think about everything and come back. All right, cool. Thank you very much, guys. Any questions or thoughts before we close for today?
Thanks, Prasad, for taking the time to do this. This is really, really, really useful and really opened my eyes to a lot of things.
Yeah, and this is one thing I tell you, like initially when I was teaching this to our teams in-house, they used to struggle with this. They would always be like, why is Prasad teaching us this? But give it a month, 1 month, exactly 1 month of doing this, like apply it at your work as well, right? At your companies that you're working at. Within 1 month, you will start seeing 2 things. Okay. Your team starts seeing you differently. Okay. Earlier, when they would have an argument, why this, why not this, you would not be able to think through, you won't be able to argue, right? But now you have very solid foundations of why you've done what you've done. Okay. So your team start interacting you very differently. Okay. And they start deferring to you over time, because once they realize Simran has thought about everything, like, why do I even need to think, like, talk to Simran, right? That's one thing that happens. The second thing that happens is you start becoming much more comprehensive in your mind. Your brain is used to thinking in terms of radical ideas that may or may not work, right? And so when you start getting your brain comfortable with ideas that will not work, your ability to ideate increases dramatically. Right? I mean, the biggest enemy of ideation is what you are not able to accept, like what you always are, this idea will not work, this idea will not work, right? So that's why you give up on this. No, that's not the point. Once you're comfortable with having an idea that doesn't work, you will ideate and it'll become very easy for you. Cool. So my advice is just these 10, these are simple exercises, mechanical exercise, just do this, do this, do this, you'll nail it. And then 1 month mein aapka pura game change ho jayega. Awesome. Thank you, guys. And if you can just stay back, that will be great. We'll just be stopping our live stream for now. For those of you that are watching on YouTube, please subscribe. So as we do more of these videos and this content, you get notified so you can join these classes and you can, share in our experience of teaching and learning. Chalo, bye, guys, for all the people that are on YouTube. So, are we done?